What if Little Red Riding Hood was never meant to be a sweet children's tale, but a chilling story of deception, cannibalism, and seduction? In this video, we'll uncover the dark original versions of Little Red Riding Hood, stories far older and more disturbing than the sanitized versions we know today. From gruesome feasts to twisted manipulation, this is the tale before it was tamed by the Brothers Grimm. Stick with us to the end, and you'll discover how a seemingly innocent fairy tale hid a haunting warning about danger, desire, and the loss of innocence. This isn't the Red Riding Hood you thought you knew. In rural France, it was known as the grandmother's tale. In this version, a werewolf or shapeshifter kills the grandmother, then slips into her clothing and lies in wait. When the girl arrives, he plays the part of her grandmother, serves her a stew made from the old woman's flesh, and invites the child to undress and climb into bed beside him. There's no huntsman, no rescue, just trickery, cannibalism, and a clever girl who barely escapes. In Italy, the false grandmother tells a similar story. When the girl arrives, she notices odd things about her grandmother: sharp teeth, strange voice, hairy hands. The creature tries to get her to eat some of her grandmother's flesh or drink her blood, often disguised as meat or wine. At night, the girl is invited to undress and crawl into bed with the grandmother. But she begins to suspect something is wrong. She pretends she has to go outside to relieve herself, or she manages to escape by jumping out a window, climbing a tree, or tricking the creature into letting her go. Sometimes the predator is an ogre or a witch, but the message is the same. Evil wears many faces. The false grandmother gives us a look into a pre-modern worldview, one where forests were wild, dangerous places, strangers were never to be trusted, and children were not seen as innocent, but in need of strict correction. Stories weren't designed to protect their feelings. They were meant to scare them straight. But not all monsters were confined to stories. Sometimes the wolf wears a human face. In 1589, in the Rhineland town of Bedburg, Germany, a man named Peter Stump was brought to trial. What followed was one of the most gruesome and infamous werewolf cases in European history. Peter Stump was a farmer who was accused of witchcraft, murder, cannibalism, and incest. After being tortured, he confessed to making a pact with the devil, who gave him a magical belt that allowed him to transform into a wolf. He claimed to have killed and eaten at least 13 children, 2 pregnant women, and even his own son. The trial records say he tore their limbs from their bodies and devoured their hearts. The part, he said, tasted the best. Ironically, Peter Stump was executed on October 31st, 1589, on what was known as All Hallows' Eve. The execution was brutal. His limbs were broken on the wheel, his flesh torn with red-hot pincers, and finally beheaded and burned. His daughter and mistress were executed beside him, accused of being complicit in his crimes. Stump's severed head was mounted on a pike beneath the carved shape of a wolf to warn others of what he had become. But what makes Stump's story so haunting isn't just the horror. It's the striking resemblance to the stories that came before and after. A wolf in human form, a predator who devours children, a monster who wears a mask. In the 16th century, the real-life horror of Peter Stump mirrored the themes of predation and cannibalism found in early folk tales. His legend helped cement the wolf as a symbol of both literal and metaphorical evil in European culture. Charles Perrault was the first to take these folk tales and spin them into fables for the aristocracy. In 1697, he published Tales of Mother Goose, a collection that included Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, and for the first time in print, Little Red Riding Hood. Gone were the clever escaping girls of earlier folk tales. In their place was a new figure, a child dressed in red, alone on a path, and doomed from the start. This Red is not a survivor. She is Eve in a cloak, wandering into her own Garden of Eden. And the wolf, he is the serpent, smart, smooth-tongued, and patient. Like Eve, she is given a command: do not stray from the path. And like Eve, she doesn't follow orders. The red hood is not an accident. It marks her, not just as a child, but as a girl becoming a woman. Like the apple, it is a symbol of knowledge, blood, temptation. Red is not a color of innocence. It is a signal of sin. Perrault's version ends with no rescue. Red is devoured by the wolf, and the story closes with a moral warning about girls who listen to wolves. This reflects original sin theology, where the fall from innocence is final and only avoided through virtue and obedience. Just as Eve's fall is often interpreted as justification for female submission, Perrault's version reinforces the idea that young women must be modest, obedient, and silent, or suffer the consequences. The story isn't just about avoiding wolves. It's about policing female behavior in a world where men are both the judges and the predators. Long before they prowled through fairy tales, wolves haunted the edges of the European imagination. They lived in the forests just beyond the village, in the darkness beyond the firelight. For centuries, they were more than animals. They were omens, symbols of death, chaos, and the punishment for not following the rules or straying too far from home. In a world where the forest was a place of exile, wolves became the embodiment of the untamed wilderness. And in the Middle Ages, that fear took on new urgency, blending with Christian superstition, famine, disease, and the growing belief in demons and werewolves. Then came the winter of 1450. The winter was particularly harsh, not just for humans, but for wildlife as well. Food was scarce. The rivers froze. Livestock died. That year, in the heart of Paris, the old fears returned. Packs of rabid wolves, driven by hunger and the cold, crept through the city gates and began attacking citizens in broad daylight. They dragged children from doorways, tore into the dying and the dead, and shattered the illusion that man could tame the wilderness. One wolf in particular stood out. The people named him Courteau Bobtail, a monstrous leader of the pack, remembered for his shortened tail and unnatural boldness. Some said he had the eyes of a man. Others whispered he was the devil himself. The citizens of Paris banded together. They hunted the wolves through the streets, cornered them, and slaughtered them in the square. But the trauma remained. The memory of wolves entering the very heart of civilization, ripping apart families, blurring the boundary between safety and savagery, would echo through generations and inspire more stories. The wolf in Little Red Riding Hood is not just a predator. He is everything civilization fears it cannot control. And sometimes, he walks right through the gate. In 1812, more than a century after Charles Perrault, Jakob and Wilhelm Grimm published Rotkäppchen, Little Red Cap, in their collection of German folk tales. But this time, the story was different. The Red Hood remained. The wolf still wore a disguise. But now, when Red is devoured, so is her grandmother, but both are cut free from the wolf's belly by a passing huntsman. In the early 19th century, Germany was a society caught between superstition and the Enlightenment. In the Grimm's telling, the tale becomes one of sin, consequence, and redemption. Red is still disobedient and still punished, but she is not abandoned. She is saved by the intervention of a masculine male protector. This shift reflects the broader cultural transformation that was going on at the time. Where children were once seen as inherently sinful and in need of correction, they were now viewed as innocent and in need of protection. They were capable of learning from their mistakes rather than being condemned by them. Later editions added a second episode in which Red encounters another wolf. This time, she and her grandmother recognize the danger and refuse to open the door, eventually tricking and killing the predator. The message is clear. Once a girl learns her lesson, she can defend herself. Little Red Riding Hood has never been just a story about a girl and a wolf. It's the reflections and the fears of each generation, the danger in the woods, the stranger at the door, the risks of growing up, and the consequences for taking the wrong path. Like Eve in the garden, Red is given a warning. She strays, she is tempted, and she pays the price for stepping beyond the bounds drawn for her. What began as a brutal lesson in survival became a moral warning, then a parable of growth and redemption. Along the way, the girl in the Red Hood transformed, from victim to student to survivor. And the wolf? He simply changed shape. He represents whatever society fears most: seduction, violence, deception, and sexual predators. Little Red Riding Hood has always been more than a fairy tale. It's a story about what we fear the most and how we teach our children to avoid it.